Hey everybody, today we're going to be talking about the one test that could save your heart and your brain. With heart disease being the #1 issue here in America and dementia and Alzheimer's on the rise, this is something that is very important that you should talk to your practitioner about to make sure, one, that you're doing preventative care, and also if you're struggling with these issues, then it can help you reassess maybe your diet, what you're doing, or other potential risk factors, which we're going to talk about today when it comes to developing these primary issues. So homocysteine is a chemical that's produced in your body that's correlated with high inflammation, especially inflammation in the vessels. So whether you're diabetic, you already have heart disease, you already have cognitive decline, you have peripheral vascular disease, neuropathy, whatever it may be, this is something that you really want to take into account. And we're going to be talking about all of the studies with that, what my research has shown. We're going to be talking about the causes of elevated homocysteine levels. I'm going to give you a code in the description that you can take to LabCorp or your practitioner so they can order it for you. And then we're going to talk about some natural alternative ways to lower homocysteine without the use of drugs. But first, what they have found recently is that in 30% of individuals 65 and older is that they had elevated homocysteine levels. And we know that as we age, we become more and more susceptible to disease. It gets harder and harder to fight off. By utilizing this homocysteine lab result, we can actually learn whether you're going to be more susceptible to developing heart disease, a stroke, peripheral vascular disease, neuropathy, dementia, Alzheimer's by this simple test. And in 40% of 80-year-olds and up, they found elevated homocysteine levels as well. So we know that your risk for developing higher homocysteine levels increases as you age. But that doesn't mean that you're subjected to this just because you're aging. We can use supplements, we can use dietary counseling to make sure that we mitigate the amount of inflammation and decrease the chance that you have for developing any type of vascular issue, which I find more common than not, especially when I'm treating patients with peripheral neuropathy. 70 to 80% of the time we find that it's more of a vascular issue than it is an actual neurological issue. And I can explain that more later. So risk factors for having elevated homocysteine levels are if you already have heart disease, you've had a heart attack, you have peripheral vascular disease, or you have a stroke. These are classic issues with the vessels throughout your body. And if your practitioner would have ran this and they would have checked it routinely, then they could have let you know, hey, maybe you need to calm down on the coffee, or maybe you need to calm down on the inflammatory foods, the sugars, whatever it may be, so that we can really do a good job at preventing you from developing these issues. So it can be very preventative, but I think it can also kind of give you a little bit better idea of how to prevent it from, developing in the future. So levels that are greater than 15 equal a risk factor for developing these issues. And when we talk about homocysteine levels that are greater than 15, it doubles your chance for developing dementia. If you have Alzheimer's in your family, or you have cognitive issues in your family, neurodegenerative diseases, then this is something that you want to monitor as well. And maybe, your neurologist doesn't know, or your primary care doesn't know, that they can just order this simple test to get a good understanding. And then, you can come here and we can talk about any comments below that you want to leave. I can help everybody kind of guide through this and what to do. But there are more recent studies that link it to cognitive decline. There was a study in 2017 that showed that a lot of these patients who had dementia or Alzheimer's had elevated homocysteine levels. So it doesn't always mean that it's 100% correlation, but we are just noticing higher and higher trends with these vascular inflammatory markers and the prevalence of cognitive decline. So what are the causes of homocysteine? Diabetes, kidney disease, cancer, thyroid diseases, all of these can lead to those increases in inflammation. If we think about this from a very basic biochemistry level, diabetes, the sugars, from what I see with my neuropathy patients, is that it damages the microvasculature in their feet and their hands. So we know that it's probably happening in their bigger arteries and vessels. And as we do that, as we cause that inflammation, then what it's going to do is it's going to raise the homocysteine levels. And so we can actually say that that damage to the endothelial lining or that vessel is actually happening in the body. So diabetes is something that if you are a type 2 diabetic, you got to get your sugars down. Every time your blood sugars go over 140 is when you're actually getting damage to the nerve and the blood vessels. And over time, as that continues to chip away, that's when you lead to these blood flow insufficiencies. You can't get oxygen and nutrients to the nerves or to any of the tissue so that they can heal, which we see in diabetics as they develop ulcers, they have poor wound healing, that they're just not able to recover as fast as they used to. Kidney disease is the same thing. If you're doing high amounts of sugar, I see a lot of the times that in our chronic kidney disease patients that most of the time they are diabetic. So even if you're not a full-blown diabetic and you are starting to develop kidney disease, then you want to check and see just where your blood sugar's at. I've just noticed a higher correlation between that more so than anything else. And then cancer comes back to sugar for me. I think that sugar feeds a lot of these cancer cells that are growing in everybody's body. And we're consuming more sugar and cancer is growing even more. So for me, that's a huge correlation. And then thyroid diseases, most of the time you're looking at liver issues with that from my experience. So I don't want to get off topic, but a lot of the times what you're finding in these elevated homocysteine patients is that they are B6 and folate and B12 deficient, which means that they're not getting enough B vitamins. Even if you are taking a multivitamin, one of the biggest issues that I see, if you have digestive issues, gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, then you probably have some sort of gut dysfunction, whether it's leaky gut, IBS, SIBO, whatever it may be. And you're not going to be able to absorb these types of nutrients and materials, which leads to nutrient deficiencies. And if I could give you one piece of advice, it would be fix your gut health first, and then you can start doing supplements and detoxes and cleanses and everything that you need to get well. But if your stomach is so impaired or your intestinal tract is so impaired that you can't absorb these vitamins and minerals, of course you're going to be deficient. That's a big issue that I think that a lot of practitioners don't address, is that they assume that everybody can absorb all the vitamins and minerals that they're giving them without thinking about a little bit further in depth about, okay, does this patient have digestive issues? Are they able to assimilate and use these vitamins and minerals like they should? And in my experience, probably in 50 to 60% of cases, that's not true. A lot of people have digestive issues. The next thing that can cause elevated homocysteine levels are drinking too much coffee, too much alcohol, and that's in excess. That's going to cause a lot of these homocysteine levels to elevate. So, and then methionine-rich foods. I don't have a list off the top of my head, but you can Google that and that'll kind of give you a better idea. And then the last thing is that if you do have the MTHFR gene mutation, then that helps regulate homocysteine level. So it is something to look further into, especially if you cut out these foods, you cut out alcohol, you start getting some really good vitamins and minerals, cutting out, all of your excess sugars. You retest with your practitioner and your homocysteine levels are still elevated, then you may want to look at getting some sort of genetic testing for that MTHFR gene to make sure that that's not holding you back. And genetics is very complicated, but that's something that you definitely want to look into. It's a pretty simple fix. All you have to do is get a methylated form of B12 so that your body doesn't have to go through that whole process, which should bring down your homocysteine levels. So in a nutshell, homocysteine damages the endothelial tissue. So if you have a vessel, it damages the inside of the vessel, and it causes the plaquing, it causes the inflammation, the release of inflammatory byproducts that lead to all of these heart disease, heart attacks, peripheral vascular disease, stroke, dementia, and Alzheimer's. So this isn't just happening, in the heart, it's also happening in the brain, which is pretty scary. It can cause atherosclerosis, or the hardening of the plaque in the vessels, and obviously just inflammation in the vessels as well. So if you have any questions, just comment below. I know that was a lot to digest and a lot to go through. If you have any more specific questions that I didn't address, like I said, just comment below. If you like and share this video, I'd really appreciate it. It just helps my channel so that I can produce more videos like this. And I hope you all have a great day, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.